All right, so Jay, you've underwritten billions of dollars in capital, and you've worked for these larger institutions, and for someone that's evaluating a property, like as an investor, you've
Mhm.
seen trends, you've seen patterns, you've
Mhm.
seen the mistakes that's being made in the market. I'm guessing you're still actively investing in real estate, maybe like REITs and stuff like
In
that.
REITs. Yeah,
Got you,
yeah,
got you.
yeah.
Are there any mistakes that founders make when structuring deals that are tied to commercial real estate?
Yeah, I mean, when you say founders, uh, my
I'm sorry, investors. Sorry, investors.
well, if you're talking about founders who structure deals that are tied to real estate, I guess I was thinking you were talking about operators, like retail restaurant operators that are doing a new location. How did they structure their real estate deal?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. We could.
that has long-term implications because you've got to live with that property for the term of the lease.
Oh yeah,
So, the key fundamental there is to make sure that your rent is well covered. And for an investor, somebody who would buy that property also needs to make sure that your rent is well covered. So that to me is one of the basic fundamentals, is to be able to project your revenue for that location and the resulting cash flow enough to cover your rent comfortably.
got you.
And we always used to use kind of a 1.5 to 1 ratio for, we call it EBITDAR, so earnings before interest, taxes, deductions, and rent.
Oh, and rent. Okay, got you, got
It's
you.
got to be 1.5 to 1. So if you've got a $150,000 location that's cash flowing 150,000, you wouldn't want your rent to exceed 100,000.
Yeah,
It's just kind of um, that kind of analysis that you as an operator
yeah,
and investor need to take on when evaluating a new location, just to make sure that this is a comfortable
yeah,
to pay the rent location, and for the operator, I'm going to have plenty of cash flow left over
yeah.
to after paying the rent.
Got you,
And
got you.
that, then aside from that, it's, as we talked before, the same thing. Is it in the growth area? Is it in a stable market that's never going to change?
Yeah,
Is the rent to market? Is the property value to market? Those are the kind of underwriting that you want to do.
yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And if someone was interested in buying a REIT, they could probably go to Yahoo Finance and look at their profit and loss statements and try to calculate that.
You know, every publicly traded REIT out there does earnings calls and files 10K, 10Q reports that
Mhm.
provide all that information, and you can
Yeah,
understand what their tenants, you know, rent coverage ratios are, what the
yeah,
REIT's dividend coverage ratio are. There's so much information; it's pretty easy to
yeah.
analyze, And it tends to be the REITs with the best performance trade at the lowest dividend.
Yeah, well, that's probably helping them stay sustainable
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
like long term to stay
Yeah,
in business and stuff.
yeah.
Like for a first time investor, would you recommend them investing into a REIT
Well, I
as
mean,
commercial real estate?
there's REITs across all types of real estate. I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah,
office REITs, there's industrial REITs, there's call center REITs, there's data center REITs now that are hot. There's cell phone tower REITs, there's billboard REITs, there's
oh, I had no idea. Wow,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
So and
Yeah.
they all kind of ebb and flow with interest rates and the hot part of the market. So right now, office is not so hot
Yeah.
because of what you alluded to earlier. Data centers are. So data centers that are trading at a premium, office market is trading at a discount. So if you're an investor, if you're able to pick one of these cycles and say, well, everybody's running from office now, I believe in them long term, this is a good time to buy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want something sure for the near foreseeable future, then your data centers and logistics centers, warehouses, which is, the world has gone to warehouses.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially these massive companies, they're investing in
Yeah,
warehouses too.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, there's a REIT industry organization called NAREIT that provides a lot of information on all these different REITs out there, and so I'd highly recommend looking at that if you're interested.
okay. Cool. Well, I'm gonna do some extra research in that too as well. So we think about ownership of infrastructure in real estate. And obviously, we talk about wealth building a lot within the videos that the audience may watch. And typically owning the infrastructure of real estate compounds wealth a lot faster than income alone. Would you say that's true?
Mhm. Oh, but yeah, I think you can. I think you can. A lot of the growth in your real estate valuation comes from going back to the fundamentals again, buying in the right spot, financing correctly with the lowest interest rate that you can find. And again, it depends on the time. I mean, 10 years ago when rates were 0 and 2% is different than they're at 6% today. So it's a combination of that. It's picking the right tenant that you know is going to be there long term. That depends on the credit of the tenant, the health of the tenant, the health of the industry. I mean, when we started investing in the early 90s in the real estate investment trust I was with, Kmart was an investment grade credit. Walmart wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and things have changed. And it didn't take long for Walmart or Kmart for that whole thing to reverse, right?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of really carefully underwriting who is your tenant, who's going to pay your rent. Are you comfortable with them long term? The compounding opportunity with owning real estate is, okay, I've owned it for 5 or 6 years. It's in a growth area, so people view it as a good opportunity. I can sell it for a profit. I can trade that property into another property at higher value without paying taxes. It's called a 1031 exchange. I can refinance the new property with hopefully lower or equivalent interest rates, and then keep repeating that years and years and years. And that's how you build wealth that way.
Got you.
You understand
Wow.
the 1031 exchange
Yeah,
idea?
yeah. I mean, well, maybe for someone that doesn't, could you explain the 1031 exchange?
Sure. I
idea?
mean, it's if you've had a property for a while, you have a gain on the property. Let's say you bought it for 100,000. It's now worth 150,000. I'm going to sell it for 150,000. Traditionally, you would have to pay taxes on the difference between 100 and 150 or $50,000. Well, if you trade it into property of equal or greater value, you defer those taxes. So you don't have a tax bill. And you now have a property that's worth more than what your original investment was.
Got
And
you.
you keep deferring this until at some point in time, and maybe it's your heirs, have to pay the taxman.
Yeah. Hopefully never.
Yeah, you can keep going.
Yeah, keep on going.
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't know that really.
yeah. Now, Congress has been trying to repeal that for quite some time, and so far they haven't, because I guess they've got a pretty strong real estate lobby in there, but that's available to people now and has been for quite a while. There's a whole industry on it if you just look up 1031 exchange.
Industry? Like as in companies helping
Yeah.
both investors or only other real estate
Investors,
companies?
investors, brokers, financial planners. It's an entire industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they're the middleman between, I guess, the deal, like I guess between the taxes and the client on their end too.
There's always a middleman.
Yeah, there's always been. Yeah. One day, I hope not too many middlemans. Nobody's making money, you know.
That's
so,
right.
so,
Yeah.
oh man. So you mentioned rent. You mentioned cash flow with the tenant paying, like how much money they have available to keep paying rent long term. Are there any other financials that immediately makes you want to walk away as an investor when evaluating?
Well, the tenant's balance sheet. I mean, the amount of debt they have and the ability to serve it, and what sort of term is on the debt. When does it expire? When do they have to refinance? That's the biggest issue that we would have in analyzing the tenant. How I know they're able to service our rent, but how about their debt in the whole company level?
Yeah.
So that's the largest one I could think. Obviously, if they're not trending, you want to look at a 3 to 5 year financial history on the tenant, determine they're heading in the right direction, profitability is better or increasing. Those are just obvious financial metrics that you want to look at, but in addition to the debt.
Well, on the bank side, a lot of the underwriting teams are being a lot more tightened, like more stricter on these loans when they're giving them out to businesses, whether owning the real estate or or using it as like a payment for each and every month of rent. So that's definitely a big one. So it means like if you have a company, you have to really have a lot of runway because they're looking at liquidity, they're looking at cash flow, they're looking at how long you've been in business.
Yeah.
They're looking at so many your education. They're looking at so many factors, and so that's why it's important to really understand your financial piece of it. So
Yeah, definitely.
got you. So every few years there's so-called a hot sector, right? And so there's a lot of cultural hype in real estate around that hot sector. Are there any durable investment opportunities that would be considered inside of that hot sector?
Well, I mean, today would be data centers. That's kind of the hot sector, and they're priced at a premium because that's where the universe thinks the world is going. And anybody that can build a data center and has a data center tenant is going to be protected long term. In a lot of communities, if you just scan the news nationally, a lot of communities are rejecting data centers
Wow.
because
High risk?
they don't want this large behemoth building that has enormous power and water requirements in their backyard.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes the existing data centers a little more valuable because they can't build as many as they thought they could originally.
Yeah.
But I think, but you pay up for that as an investor. You get a lower dividend on your investment in those type of stocks than you do if you were a contrarian investor and went to office or went to shopping centers or
Yeah.
malls. I think in terms of real estate, that's the kind of hot one right now.
Yeah.
And only because it's sort of new and it's where everybody's talking about AI. Well, AI's got to be supported by data centers.
That's true. Yeah. And that's a whole different conversation right
Yeah,
there.
it
It's
is.
super hot.
Yeah,
Super hot in every industry. And
yeah,
if you don't use it, you're gonna fall behind.
Yeah.
So there was I had made a video around fractional real estate investing. It's where you can use like a middleman platform, like I believe like Arrived Homes, Loft Homes or Lofty Homes, something like that, where you go to the platform, you're around other fractional real estate investors,
Yeah.
and you can actually buy into a property.
yeah, yeah,
Commercial real estate, industrial real estate,
yeah,
but you don't have to necessarily have a lot of money. Like the minimum you have to have is around $1,000 minimum. And then in order to invest in like a commercial real estate property that's like worth multi-million dollars, you got to be pretty much an accredited investor. Minimum net worth requirements,
Yeah.
minimum income requirements. And so like, would you say, I mean, we've talked about this like throughout the conversation, but you mentioned REITs. Is there anything else you recommend for like a beginner investment? I'm sorry, beginner investor to get into commercial real estate?
Yeah, I would say that those fractional things that people need to be aware of how they're structured. Okay, so let's say you have $100 to invest in those. You're going to spend maybe 15 of those dollars to the promoter who lined you up with this. You're going to spend $15 in total to the promoter, to a real estate broker, to somebody to manage the property, and then all of a sudden you've got $85 invested in real estate, not 100. Your 100 is now whittled down to just 85. Now, so that's one thing. What is your return on $85? If they were promising you 7% on 100, well, now you're only getting a lot less on 85 that's in real estate.
Yeah.
So that's one consideration for you too. How do you get your money out? What's the exit strategy? It depends on the promoter and when they decide to disband the fund. They can tell you that they've got somebody that will step in and take your share, but that is not guaranteed. They can't guarantee that. So that's a concern. REITs are an easy way to invest $1,000 across a variety of things, and you can do an ETF that invests in REITs, and they've got a kind of a bundle of REITs for $1,000 and get a 4 or 5% return, and there you go. You've invested in real estate. couple REITs are dividend aristocrats. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple REITs out there that have been paying dividends, increasing dividends for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Take a look at how those guys have returned over time. I think you would find that they're 12 to 15% annual return over a 30-year period, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not dealing with the day-to-day real estate issues, and you can
Yeah.
get the money out when you need to.
Yeah. A lot more liquid.
Yeah.
A lot more liquid.
Yeah.
Got you. Are there any, like, is there a dividend yield that you say to, I guess, like, stay around? Like, is there a good average dividend yield that you typically?
It's kind of back to what I mentioned earlier. It's investing in cycles.
Okay.
So if you think apartments are kind of out of favor at the moment, they're going to return a higher, maybe a 6 or 7% yield,
Wow.
whereas data centers are 2 or 3. So investing in apartments at 5 or 6 or 7% yield, and hope with the hopes that it's going to increase in value, you've got some upside there. That's kind of the way I would recommend looking into that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, cool. Cool. Is there anything else that you would like to just tell the audience, either about like investing or get into a career within commercial real estate or whatever comes to mind?
Yeah. One thing, what you asked me to kind of go back to my background on this, and one thing I thought maybe it'd be worth saying, because it was certainly helped for me. But I have 44 years in this business. That's all I've ever done. The first 18 years of it, I was a real estate company guy for Holiday Inns and Wendy's and Quaker State and Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
But I was an expense. I didn't know how to make hamburgers. I didn't know how to run a restaurant. I didn't want to run a restaurant. I liked real estate.
Yeah.
Right? Until I got with a company where I knew how to make money for the company. In other words, took my real estate capabilities to a company that was a real estate company. I stayed in one city for 30 years. I stayed with one company for 28 years. So that to me, find something you love, and then go to a company that does what you love, and that kind of helps.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I went to Wendy's and worked as a real estate guy there for years and years. And when Wendy's stopped developing, guess what? They got rid of the real estate guys, right?
Yeah.
So
Not revenue driving.
Yeah,
You support the operation.
exactly.
Right?
You're a service to them.
Yeah.
So if whatever you're gonna be in, go to a company that's what they do.
If you had to go back to in your hometown, smaller town,
Yeah.
and come back to where you are today, would you go through the same journey again?
If I knew what I knew today,
Yeah, if you knew what you knew
I
today.
probably would have started out in real estate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have started out with a company that does real estate.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Do you think that your previous experience was like I don't want to say prerequisite, but it helped you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because the kind of real estate we acquired with our real estate investment trust was the kind of property I dealt with my whole career.
Yeah.
So it was restaurants and retail, hospitality, entertainment, et cetera. So
Were there any risk that you say, not risk, were there anything that would make you second guess going into the industry? Like with all the information you knew now, like if you had a Jay that said, "Hey Jay, this is the risk that you should watch out for. This is things you should look at." Is there anything that comes to mind?
in commercial real estate.
Yeah, in commercial real estate, like within their career in commercial real
Yeah, I
estate.
think it's become such an institutional business. It's highly regulated. It's financially, it's financial modeling. It's financial expertise. I'm an old dirt guy, so I'm not sure I would fit in the environment today where, MBAs and smart guys like you know how to fund and access institutional capital for REITs. So I think it's definitely it's a massive business, the REIT and commercial industry, but it's so well securitized now with public capital that it just requires a different person than I was. But certainly there's a lot of folks coming out of school that it's perfect for them.